Hi, this is Mark Leslie Lefebvre from the Stark Reflections on Writing and Publishing podcast, and this is a special thank you patrons video. I wanted to thank all listeners of the Stark Reflections podcast, as well as all patrons of the show. Thanks to the patrons for your patronage, because your patronage really helps pay for my time in producing the show, and that helps make sure that I provide additional extra content for the patrons. Now, this video, even though it's a thank you to all patrons, is being shared with everyone, regardless of whether or not you're a patron. And it's just basically showing you the generosity of the patrons for the podcast, thanking them publicly so that people who aren't patrons can also benefit from it. See what that pay it forward thing is that you're doing as patrons. Now, I started the Stark Reflections on Writing and Publishing podcast in early January of 2018 because I was eager and excited to continue to have an opportunity to interact with, interview, and talk with authors and other industry folks so that I can continue to learn myself as a writer and as a publishing industry professional, but then also reflect on some of the things that I was learning, and hopefully through those reflections that I share on a weekly basis, hopefully help either inspire, entertain, or inform other authors of the things that may be valuable to them. Because if I'm going through something and I'm learning something, chances are there's another writer out there who's going through the same thing. So I started that journey at the beginning of 2018. I have produced this weekly podcast. Thank you for listening to it. Thank you patrons for supporting it. And I wanted to offer you a little bit of context. Now, first, before I share the additional content or context that you may find valuable, I wanted to just remind you that next week, which is November 23rd, Friday, November 23rd, the episodes come out every Friday. Episode 48 will feature an interview with Andrea Pearson. Now, Andrea and I reconnected just recently in Las Vegas, Nevada at the WMG Business of Masterclass Publishing workshops. We had a wonderful time connecting there, and so I wanted to get her on the podcast so she could share some of her excellent ideas from her own marketing and consulting that she does with authors. She's very insightful and very fun to chat with, and that'll be coming up in next week's episode. The week after that, I believe, if I do this properly, it's going to be an interview. Episode 49 on November 30th is going to be a chat with Tommy Ray, who is a musician and an author, and we talk about his book Rambling Across America and how he took a dream, an actual dream he had, like woke up from a dream, and in that dream was the dream of actually quitting his day job, picking up his guitar, getting in the truck, and traveling across America to share his music. Again, it is a creative endeavor that many of us dream about, the idea of just pursuing those creative passions. And it's a really wonderful chat with Tommy that you get a chance to listen to. And then that weekend, the weekend of December 1st and 2nd, I will be releasing a special episode 50 of the podcast. Again, I'm doing this to thank you listeners and you patrons, and I want to give you all extra content for helping me out and being part of this journey with me. It's going to be a special 50th episode where I reflect on some of the things that I've learned just in the last year, because yes, I want there to be more than 52 episodes of the podcast. I made a mistake and messed some things up, so I've already slipped an extra episode in there by accident, and I wanted to get at least an extra episode out there. And this is on top of the 2 additional podcast episodes that are out there just for patrons only. But episode 50, of course, is going to be like this video for everyone, open, wide, and available. Again, thanks to the generosity of the amazing patrons from the Stark Reflections podcast. I really do appreciate you guys. And so thanks to you guys, thanks to you patrons, I'm providing this content for everyone so they can enjoy. So earlier this year, I released a book called The 7 Ps of Publishing Success, and I wanted to give you sort of a Reader's Digest, or if you're Canadian, you'll understand Cole's Notes. I guess if you're American, you'll understand Cliff's Notes, or abbreviated version of the 7 Ps of Publishing Success. Now, they did start off early. In the early days when I was talking to writers, they started off as the 3 Ps of Publishing Success. And the 3 Ps of Publishing Success initially were patience, practice, and persistence. The idea was that you should write every day, you should write regularly, you should be patient, because overnight success can take years. Many of the success stories in the self-publishing sphere have been authors where they didn't see the success until their 3rd or 5th or even their 10th book. So Hugh Howey is an example, where Wool was the 10th novel that he published, and that was the one that got optioned by Ridley Scott and skyrocketed him to success. In traditional publishing, it was often not until an author had 3 or 4 books under their belt that their career really started to take off. Now that's changed a lot. There's not as much patience in traditional publishing for the mid-list author to grow their career, but it does often take time to establish those things. So patience, practice, and persistence were the first 3. But as I started to examine, I realized there were other P's. And so the very next one was, and persistence, I should say, is keep at it and be patient. So they all kind of tied together nicely. The very next one was progression. And progression ties really, really nicely in with patience, practice, and persistence, because it's great to write every day. It's great to work at your craft. It's great to work at learning the business of publishing as well, and to be patient and persistent and continually work at your craft and work at learning the business. Something I've been doing for 25 years, or more so for my writing, but 25 years at least with respect to the business of writing, publishing, and book selling. But it's one thing to continue to practice, but if you're not progressing, if there's no progression in that work, then some of that extra effort, patience, practice, persistence isn't going to pay for itself, or isn't going to pay itself off, because as you continually practice, if you practice doing something that's not necessarily the best way of doing it, you learn, you try things, you make mistakes, you grow from it, you learn, you keep getting better and better at your writing, you get better and better at understanding the business. And as the industry changes, you need to continue to learn the things that changed. When I started in writing and publishing, there was no internet, there was no self-publishing the way that we know it today in digital publishing. You had to sell your stories and mail them away to a publisher. Well, that's changed, right? You can still do that. It changed with email, where you can actually send electronic submissions. So even the concept of an SASE, or a self-addressed stamped envelope, which was basically a word every budding writer knew at the time, is not necessarily a thing that people use today. So over time, you progress and you change, you grow, you become better at your craft, but you also become better and adept at adapting to the industry as it changes. Now, the next P in the chain is, of course, professionalism. And professionalism almost even ties in as a natural sort of slide over from progression, in that you need to be professional in your behavior, you need to be professional in the way you present yourself, and you need to be professional in your manner and the way that you speak to other people and the way that you treat other people, whether it's other writers, whether it is editors that you've hired, or book cover designers, or any other industry person. It could be a retailer that you're interacting with. It could be a distributor that you're interacting with. It could be librarians. It could be when you're attending writers' conventions and how you interact with other people on panels or in the hallways, treating other people with respect, treating other people with dignity, and putting on a professional persona. Now, saying that it's professional doesn't mean you're not also being authentic. And I'll give you a personal example. It also doesn't mean you're not eclectic. And again, going back to the personal example, now I am authentic in the Stark Reflections podcast. I'm authentic in the various videos that I share to social media, in my various social media posts on Facebook and Twitter, Instagram, etc., on my YouTube channel. Yes, I do perhaps put on a different hat. Sometimes I'm talking about industry stuff. Sometimes I'm talking about my writing as a horror writer, as a writer of true ghost stories. Sometimes I'm talking about my love of craft beer. So even if I have different hats on, I still behave in a professional manner. And yes, I am a dad, so I tell really bad, horrible dad jokes that make people roll their eyes. That is authenticity. That is me being me. Even though you might think that perhaps sharing a dad joke is not professional, again, there's certain jokes I'm not going to share because of certain taste or whatever. Of course, you can't please all tastes. But for the most part, you'll find that when I'm in public and when I'm sharing these things, you are getting the authentic and real me. You're just getting that professional version of me. So the version of me that you see on stage, the version of me that you hear on a podcast, and the version of me that you're seeing right now on video is indeed genuine Mark Leslie Lefebvre. I even have, for example, this is some of the eclectic things, is I have Barnaby Bones, skeleton right behind me, and I have Yorick skeleton as well, who often accompany me on my writing journeys, particularly when I'm there to tell true ghost stories or I'm there to talk about my horror fiction. That may be eclectic and a little weird and bizarre, and it's very curated towards the target audience. When I'm doing my beer things, I'm usually wearing a beer shirt advertising one of my favorite breweries that, craft breweries that I've been to, or I'm doing a beer tasting of a new beer, and I'm being authentic about the things that I enjoy, about the brewery, about the style, about even the art on the label art, as well as, of course, the taste. You can be your authentic self in different ways and always be professional. You never know when something you say or do at a convention or at a particular situation or online could basically come back to harm you. So it's always important to be professional, and it's always important to be kind and to be respectful of other people as much as you can. We're all human, and of course we all make mistakes, and I know I have made my own mistakes, but at the very least I do my very best to treat others with respect and to be professional in pretty much most of the approaches that I take. I'm sure if you look hard and wide, you'll find mistakes that I've made at this time, find some unprofessional things, but for the most part, you'll find that a good example. Then you have a partnership. Partnership is an important P in publishing success, because you're either you're going to partner, usually you're partnering with an editor that you're working with, whether it's a traditional editor that's assigned to you by a publisher, or whether it's an editor that you hire as an independent or self-published writer. It could be other people that you hire or work with, virtual assistants. It could be other authors that you co-author with. I've co-authored for self-publishing projects, and I've co-authored with traditional publishing projects. I honestly believe that partnership and collaboration is one of the keys of the future of publishing, and it's going to become more and more important as we move forward. So thinking about those partnerships and those collaborations and what you can bring to those partnerships is an important element of success. And then the last P of the official 7 Ps is patronage. Of course, I'm thanking you patrons for your support, but it's not just the patronage of people who are putting money down, although that does really reflect in it, and it comes back to the 1,000 true fans concept, that if a creative person has 1,000 true fans who will purchase every single thing that you release, that could potentially be the basis of actually making a living as a creative person. But I'm talking about patronage in the broader sense, not just people who are putting money down, not just people who are buying, but people who are willing to give you your time and listen to you, people who are willing to be part of your tribe, people who are willing to be part of your street team, people who are willing to engage and interact with you. And that's what patronage is. You kind of, as a writer, unless your goal is to write and just have it published and not have anyone read it, patronage is really important, because there is that reader at the other end that you're connecting with. And for me as a writer, that's one of the critical elements of writing. Yes, I write these stories because I have to write these stories, and they're important for me to share because of the things going on in my mind that I want to put out there. But the real thing about the writing, the real beauty, the real magic is I can write things down, and other people can later, at their own time, in their own space, and in their own way, they can bring that writing to life by absorbing it, by being a patron and enjoying that work. And it doesn't need to involve the exchange of money at all, but that is an important element for publishing success, because if you don't have people who are consuming or engaging with your product, then it doesn't really fulfill that aspect, at least from the aspect of the way that I look at the 7 Ps of publishing success. And of course, there are 7 Ps, but there's a hidden P that kind of filtrates throughout every single one of those Ps that you already get, and that is promotion. Because whether you're promoting yourself as a professional author, whether you're promoting your writing as a professional author because of the practice that you've done and learning it, whether you're promoting the things that you understand about the industry, whether you're promoting a specific book, or you're doing an actual promo where you've dropped the price and you've purchased a promotion through a BookBub or a Bargain Booksy or one of those other promotion sites, whether you are doing paid advertising or whether you're just doing content marketing building and you're sharing content that is somewhat related to the book or books that you're producing, you are doing promotion. And promotion pretty much ties in, if you look at it, through every single other P in that chain. So that's just a high-level Reader's Digest version of the 7 Ps of professional, 7 Ps of publishing success, I should say. And I wanted to share that with you so that, I mean, yeah, if you've read the book, great. You'll get a lot more details and examples for each item, and probably a little bit more well thought out because it's gone through an editor, etc., rather than me just rhyming them off the top of my head. But I wanted to provide you with that content and that context in case that you find something in what I just said valuable, useful, informative, and perhaps even inspiring. Again, this is Mark Leslie Lefebvre. Thanks so much for watching this video. Thanks for listening to the Stark Reflections podcast. Thank you for being a patron. And I will catch you next time, most likely, in episode 48, which is coming in just a few days on November 23rd.